Hey, this is your girl, C. Yep, you know it's me. Listen, y'all have been seeing all the flyers flashing with these dope beats behind it. You've seen Elliot's face flashing through your timeline. You've seen me flashing through your timeline. And also, you have seen, yes, Miss Crystal Raspberry, y'all. She is in the building. So I want us to give her some snaps. Elliot, give her some snaps. Yes, 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 yes.
Definitely.
So you may have seen in the title of the show, she is a licensed clinical mental health counselor. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing her introduction because I want her to spend time telling you who she is as we go through this journey in this room together tonight, y'all. We'll have a full picture of exactly who she is and how she can help us out. All right. So, Crystal, thank you so much for coming and joining tonight. We welcome you and so happy to have you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the introduction. Like you said, I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor. I have been in the field of mental health for several years. I actually started in community mental health. So I've done a lot of community nonprofit work. And I worked in different levels. And so I like to tell everyone I did every step. So I've been a paraprofessional, an associate professional, qualified professional, and I'm like, hey, I need some license. And I definitely went into want to take it a step further. And so I ended up doing counseling. And so I've really enjoyed my journey. I enjoy helping people to help themselves. It's definitely a guided journey. And so when I look at mental health, I look at the aspects of how it affects individuals, families, and also our communities. And so one of the things that I really am passionate about is being able to be that guide, that resource that a lot of people need when you're addressing mental illness.
Absolutely. It's really important for us to have someone in our community that we can reach out to. It's really important. Elliot, you can, agree because you were on the line when we had, the conversation about bringing her on. Do you remember when I said, something about her coming?
Yes, I do. And I'm
Yeah.
glad that she decided to because she's very knowledgeable. I did some research too to see what her profession was about. The little bit of description they gave us. It is very important. She's a very important person with a lot of knowledge, and we have a lot to gain by learning from her.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's a lot.
And
Thank you.
we were really excited. Well, we were excited because, like he said, we felt like there was a lot for us to learn and gain from you, number one. But then number two, the movie 17 Days, I just finished shooting that movie with All Entertainment Media Group and Terry D Films. Big shout out to them, DJ Fluent, all of the beautiful cast, Omar Gooding, Miguel Nunez, y'all. Please make sure streaming August 6th, August 9th. I put that plug in there real quick. The movie comes out, y'all, and the soundtrack will be out June 17th. And the reason why Chris and Elliot already know, the movie is about domestic violence. And, it's something that I think has happened since, I think, of course, our great grannies probably, went through stuff. However, I think over the course of time, it's been so swept under the rug. And, as the person being abused, you've been made to feel embarrassed. So you don't want people to know. And it's just kind of been this hidden cancer almost, where it's just been silently growing and growing. And, as someone with your expertise, it said, I was excited to bring you on because we're talking about the movie, we're talking about being abused, but I don't want to only focus on the person or the people or the woman or the child being abused. I want to also make sure we're focusing on the person who is the abuser, because I think sometimes if you're dealing with certain people who are narcissists or and realize these subtle little things that could be making them aggressive or so I really just want you to spend time with us just breaking this thing down for us, sis.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so Elliot, which question did you want to start off with tonight for Crystal?
Um, your profession as a LCMHC, can you explain to us what that is and what do you do?
So, as a licensed clinical mental health counselor, one of my things that I do, I provide individual and outpatient therapy services. And so, I work with individuals that are seeking assistance. And so, a lot of my referrals are self referral. I do get some community referrals as well. It's more so. When I'm providing my therapy services, I really like to consult with the individual. So they may call in and we may just kind of chat for a few minutes. And so that way I can fill out what they need and also make sure that my level of care is appropriate for them. Because we know there is several different levels of care when we look at mental health, and being able to provide that is very, very important. I feel like a lot of times in our communities, unfortunately, people don't receive the adequate level of care and service that they need in order to have a wellness and healthy lifestyle. And so one of the things I do is look at the whole approach and kind of get ideas from my clients about their goals and what they're looking to do as far as while they're in treatment.
It's amazing when you're talking about that because that's exactly what we started talking about, this whole community thing. And for those who are joining in with us tonight, there is a delay on my end. I don't know. Y'all know we had this geostorm and all kinds of extra stuff happening in the atmosphere. I don't know what it is, but if there is a delay on your end, give me in advance. I am out of control of what's happening with the internet, but just bear with us. But going back to your point, Crystal and Elliot, that's exactly what we're here for. We want to make sure that the community know that people like you exist. I feel like it's almost like being a teacher. I worked in early education, worked with preschool. I developed an infant toddler curriculum. I don't have any babies of my own. God just gave me like a quadruple million boost of love for children. And, I learned quickly with all that love that I had for other people's children, that was the job up there. Oh, I think I'm going to teach. You have to be called to teach. And for, something with what you're doing, I feel like that's a calling. I mean, wouldn't you agree, guys?
Definitely. It's definitely something that you have to pull from. And it's definitely a piece of wanting to see change. It's not something that you go into looking at financial goals. You actually go into looking at what can I do to help people, and that's the thing, and that's the goal. It's being able to use that gift. I believe we all have special gifts, and the gift of just listening and guiding is so important. And it's something that you grow into and you learn to love.
I have another question.
Okay. Are you
When
there?
it, when it,
Okay, I'm
yeah.
there. So what I'm doing, I'm trying to modify our I'm noticing, I want the listeners to catch every single word that you're saying, Crystal. So I'm trying to be like the behind the scenes DJ over here and mute our mics when you're talking. And so I'm trying to make sure that I'm not causing too much of a hiccup, but I think I'm gonna just leave that alone. Because this is so good, and I'm so excited to have this, like Elliot said, plethora of information available to us, So I'll make sure that if you do miss anything, the delays in the internet, and make sure you go to this YouTube stream and please play it as many times as you need. Because there are little gems in here, even with us talking about what you're doing, you're being called to do that, in we do in life, we really need to know that we're called to that. It's thing we got to do stuff to make money. But if you know that you are a boisterous person, an extrovert, outgoing personality, and loud and vivacious, you should not go and apply to the library to be a librarian. I'm sorry. That's just, I mean, like put stuff in perspective. And so that was amazing because you do need to know that you are called, especially when you're dealing with something so sensitive. Elliot, was there anything else that you had for Crystal and for us to kind of talk about and share with her tonight?
Oh yeah, I was going to ask about like as far as the community. Uh, we do have some issues, with this mental health situation. What would you like to see? As far as like improvements. You know what I'm saying? As we can all work together to work on to further strengthen the community to move forward.
Like I said earlier, I started out in community mental health, and one of the things that I saw a lot of was a lot of transient um, clients, and so they would move from state to state, and a lot of times the services would be interrupted. And so we know that's a lot to do with politics and policies as far as insurance. And so I would like to see a connection to where we ensure and have a process in play for individuals that are moving, whether it's due to homelessness, whether it's due to domestic violence, something in place to where if I move to another town or another state, then I can walk in and start receiving services. I can walk in and get my prescriptions filled, and I don't have to wait 3 months until my insurance transfers over. And so that's really big in our communities, especially when we look at mental illness.
Okay,
Now, Crystal, is
another
there
question.
some type of system that already exists? Oh, I'm sorry. Well, this I don't want to, I want to kind of piggyback on that same response, if that's okay, Elliot. What I wanted to ask Crystal, is there a system already in place, like for the transients? So if they do like kind of go to one state to the other, that y'all know them, or there's some type of, tracking?
So it just depends. There are systems in place, but sometimes, like we talked about earlier, individuals struggle with how to identify those systems. Where do they go? Where's that linkage? And I like to always say, regardless of where you are, there's always going to be a Department of Social Service. And so even if it's not getting mental health services straight from there, that's like a good contact as far as a resource or referral for individuals, because they're going to link you to a community mental health provider. Here locally where I'm at, we have local management entities that take care of assisting with that piece as well. But when we look at state to state, a good resource or a good linkage for that could be the Department of Social Service. But then it takes that individual going in and say, hey, I'm new here, I need these services. And that sometimes is the gap in between care that you see.
Okay. Okay, so I know you work with children. What would you advise for parents to be able to better communicate with their children as far as the community, and and how to relate to other people, and out in the community, and be able to kind of help, and see some things in like a different light, as far as parent to child relationships.
So when we look at parent and child relationships, one of the things I recommend is really looking at that social emotional learning approach. And so when we talk about social emotional learning, we're looking at different areas. So we're looking at self-awareness, we're looking at social awareness, self-management, assisting our kids with making responsible decisions, relationship skills, and all of those are kind of coordinated into one. And so when we address the social emotional needs of our kids, then we're able to kind of set them up for employment, relationships, set them up for being able to deal with the community, encourage them to learn how to have empathy for others, and kind of think through their decisions. And so starting there, you say like all these big words. So what does it look like? When we talk about social emotional learning, it looks like checking in with your kids daily, having a daily check-in, creating routines, and creating a communication system. Our kids nowadays really like technology. And so they're not just going to come out and tell you, what they need. Create a communication system. Maybe it's just a text that you send every day, just checking in to see how you're doing. Focusing on the things that not only that they do well, but the things that they're not quite yet meeting and achieving, and providing them with that encouragement to continue to push. And so I would love to see that. And I think parents that also teach their kids about relationship skills will help them better understand what's a healthy relationship compared to an unhealthy relationship. And so sometimes when they're able to see that, they're able to start making good decisions about who they interact with and the things that they do in life.
Answer. Thank you very much.
I was thinking, because a lot of times, Crystal, you hit it on the head. You hit the nail on the head, because a lot of times the teens don't know how to initiate that conversation. I just I just had the other day a friend of mine. The school system has, or maybe it's uh, your field. I guess they give them these surveys and questionnaires about mental health. Are you familiar with those surveys, I guess, that they're giving out in the schools, kind of asking the teens and the kids like how they're feeling and stuff?
I know some schools do like a daily check-in, and it's just kind of like an emotional check-in. I think it is different for different districts. They use different surveys and different curriculum when it comes to social emotional learning. But yeah, that is a part of it. Just kind of getting them to be able to identify their own emotions is really, really important. And so that is a tool that they may be using.
Well,
And
I'm
even
thankful for that tool, because it really kind of was a bridge.
Yeah, definitely. And that it starts the conversation. So, parents say, well, how do I have this conversation? My child won't talk to me. And so that's when you start looking at other resources, right? So you start looking at community providers, you start looking at maybe family therapy, you start looking at reaching out to even the school counselor, maybe setting up a session, just to kind of talk about, some academic concerns, or, just letting your child know that you want to be involved. And it can get harder sometimes with teens when you start to see them wanting to be a little bit more independent. And so that piece may cause you to have to bring someone else in, as far as looking at, outpatient therapy stuff, as that far as when we look at that process.
For sure. For sure.
Another great answer. Mentally, verbally and emotionally. Some people, men and women, have problems like realizing when they're abusing someone in each of those ways. Um, how can uh, how can you help people to realize, when, and if they're doing those things, and and they are going overboard, but don't realize it? How do you help them bring that to light?
So we talked about different tools that you can use with your kids. There's tools and resources that you can check in with yourself as well. Check in on, what do your relationships look like? How do people feel and interact when you're around? What does it feel like as far as your communication? Do you feel like you're the first person, people come to? Like it kind of identifies like who you are in someone's life. And when you start looking at that and you start thinking about different bonds, it helps you to be able to identify, is this a healthy relationship or is this a relationship based on trauma that's kind of bonded together? And so when we look at those things and we're able to kind of identify and address our own emotions and our own feelings, then we can kind of see those things. And always have that one person, if possible. It may be your counselor, it may be a coach, it may be someone that you can actually go to that you very value their opinion. And so that may be someone that you trust in your life and they can actually give input to. So just being able to kind of open up to those concepts. But like you said, sometimes it is difficult to kind of look at that. So just a daily check-in, even a daily check-in for self-care. How are you feeling at the end of the day? Based on how you're feeling at the end of the day, it's going to tell you what type of energy you're putting out into the environment as well.
Thank God for Elliot, because there's been times, Crystal, where I'm calling Elliot like, Elliot, I gotta tell you something, dude. And he's like, come on, talk to me. What's up? Like, and and mind you, like he's in California, so I be having to make sure, but it is so important, like you said, to have someone that you feel like you can talk to, because going back to that survey with the children, at the end of the survey, it asks, is there like who your family do you feel like you can go to and talk to if you're having a problem? Who at school, or, do you have friends? It was really specific. And, as a parent, it can be hurtful if they didn't put your name there, because then you're like, well, I feel like you can come and talk, because as a parent, that's all you want to do is be there, for your child. And so I think that, Crystal, someone like you, a team of you, if we can just duplicate you, and have, a whole launch, of just teaching parents how to be more available. I was abused. And a lot of us went through spankings and stuff, as a child, some worse than others. But, you know, it's just, I think we have to be, even going back to slavery, we were taught to beat, we were taught to whip each other. And, I just wonder, even going back to our community, how much of those whippings and beating was something that was kind of instilled from the slave masters. I know a lot of my Caucasian counterparts do not spank physically their children. They do not believe in, corporate punishment. And I just really, I feel like, sometimes I would rather you hit me than say certain things, like as far as abuse goes, from what my experience was. But at the same time, I think that if we had more people like you, in places with resources to have a whole center, a whole budget for me, saying we're going to teach this community how to communicate with their children. We're going to teach these children how to express themselves. I think that that would help us in a lot of ways. How would you feel? I mean, what do you guys think about that?
Definitely, definitely. I always imagine, for me growing up, boys and girls clubs were like a big thing. So those community centers were like a huge part of my life. And I wish we had more centers. I wish they were duplicated and you were providing parent support classes, like it would be there in the center. Like even in my community where I'm from, they still have the same director at the Boys and Girls Club. I was there. And so he's like a huge part of the community. He's not licensed. He hasn't went to school to be a counselor, but there are kids that definitely go and sit down and they can talk and he listens and he knows how to provide. So just having those extra, it doesn't take a license always. I mean, it's good. We want to have it. And sometimes that's the level. We talked about the levels of care earlier, but creating that community, that village for your child is so important because sometimes, unfortunately, our kids don't put us down as the first person they, feel like they want to run and talk to. But at the same time, help them create that community. I learned that early with my nephew. That was one of the things that when I help like in my family, it's like he's the go-to in our family. Like all my little cousins go to him with the problems. And fortunately, he's actually going to school for counseling as well. And so as him as the go-to, like he'll come to me and then I can give him advice and he takes it back to them. And so we have this community. Like they're going to probably see this now. They're going to know my secret. But we have a community that we set up. And so it's not like always, me directly. And so that's a part of something that's very important. Even if you've experienced your own trauma and you're still working on things within yourself, one of the things that you can do for your kids to kind of help guide and bridge those gaps is to be able to help them create that community.
Very true. Very true. I had one more question for you, if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any way that you can share any resources to help people as like a stepping stone, that are in like, bad or abusive relationships, just to kind of help them, give them some strength, to be able to know they have some type of outlets that they can maybe, look up or contact?
Yeah. So when we look at those resources, one of the things I like to say, since it's not necessarily my specialty, it's always good to go to the specialty, right? And so when we say that, we know one of the major resources that we have is the domestic violence hotline and their contact information. And when you can go on the website and I can get you that information as well. Their contact number is the 1-800-799-SAFE. And so what happens is there is someone that's going to answer the phone who's going to be able to help guide you, regardless if they're not in your state. They have all the resources based off of states. They can assist you with case management, whether you need assistance with finding a counselor that specializes in domestic violence, whether you need assistance with getting support for your kids that have witnessed domestic violence. So it's really a good start to kind of go there, go to the source, go to who is actually creating these outlets. And it's very important because once you pick up the phone, that's the hardest step. And so once you pick up the phone and you allow someone in to help guide you through those steps, it definitely is important.
And Crystal, would you say in the years of experience you working as a licensed mental health counselor, clinical mental health counselor, would you say that you've seen a lot of mental health problems kind of related to any, maybe patients that were involved in domestic violence? And I know you can't disclose information, but, as far as I'm asking the question because the movie is about domestic violence, but I was finding that in us trying to promote it and talking to different people, the subject of health kept kind of, leaking in really, really close, almost as if they were, related, like first cousins or something. So
I would say, from my experience, there's definitely a linkage to unaddressed trauma. And so, what you find is that individuals have experienced some type of trauma, whether it was in childhood, that created their ideas of what a relationship would look like, that's carrying on into adulthood. And so, you will see that. And so, when you're not able to identify that, hey, this is not a relationship, this is not what it looks like, then it's hard to actually identify that. And so, you do see a lot of trauma bound relationships, because it's kind of like, this is what I'm used to, this is what I've seen, and so this is what I continue to carry over. And so there is a lot of, when you look at PTSD and we talk about mental health and domestic violence, there is definitely a linkage.
It's so deep that you're saying that, because it's almost as if what you're doing is a precursor for any, domestic violence, sure. But if I'm someone who, like you said, all of us have had some type of trauma, in our lives growing up. What degree of trauma that has been or what is just varying. But I can't take away what you went through, like I can't take it away from me and say, well, my pain was yours. Everyone needs to be healed. And I think that sometimes we're always trying to just fix something that's more of the symptoms is the disease itself, which would be ourselves. And I think that if I'm coming to you, what's the scripture, I'm not worry about, the speck in your eye when I got a whole rod in mine. So it's kind of like, let me go to a counselor for myself. So I want to use this time to encourage the listeners to heed and follow the energy of what's kind of being translated here. Maybe this is a message for us individually to actually activate ourselves and go to a counselor on ourselves for ourselves. And then we'll be able to see, oh, well, because of this is how I can communicate with my partner. Or, oh, because of this, now I can handle finances different because I saw this. So I really that you kind of encouraged and blessed the platform that I wasn't even expecting, because it just makes sense to me that this is more of an individual thing. Go and check yourself, go and make sure you're fine, because of course, if a narcissistic person, they're not going to admit that they are the problem. But in hindsight, if you're in a relationship, y'all, and y'all are going to counseling, and the counselor is like, well, I still can't get your partner to even humble themselves, then at least you're not crazy. So, do y'all see what I'm saying? Like, y'all kind of follow me a little bit.
Definitely, definitely. You will be amazed to the things that you identify, like things that you might have just been living with and not even acknowledging that that's something that you need to address. And so it is a good stepping stone.
Wow, this has been wonderful. Elliot, is there anything else that you have for Miss Crystal tonight? Oh, I'm so sorry. I told y'all I wasn't a DJ.
No, that was it. And this was very, very enlightening. I had a great time. Did learn a lot, like we suspected we would, and more. And like, it's really great. And like you said, you need like clones of her, so we can get this started and start to get this information out there, so we can help our communities as best as possible. And man, that's pretty much it for me. But like I said, I had a great time.
Yes,
Thank you
absolutely.
guys
So,
so much.
Crystal, I'll give you the last word. I do. You are welcome. I want to give you the last word. I'm going to say this, but then I'm going to give you the last word. Y'all make sure to go back, look at this several times, and stay connected with the channel. And Crystal, I want you to let everybody know again What if someone wants to reach out to you? They watch this, hey, I want to talk to her. I like the way she was talking. How would you recommend that they, appropriately reach out to you and contact you if they needed help themselves?
So locally, you can find me. It's Crystal Rucker-Raspberry. You can Google me. I'm actually located in the High Point area. You can call 336-517-7171 to schedule a consult. And just kind of just feel out. Like I said, we could have a 15-minute conversation and you can say, hey, maybe this isn't for me. Or we can have a 15-minute conversation. You say, hey, this is exactly what I've been looking for. So that's why we like to have that consult. It doesn't cost anything. It just gives you the opportunity to kind of learn more about what's out there and what's going to work for you. Therapy comes in all different types and different specialties. And so I say continue to push and knock on doors and dial numbers until you find what fits for you.
Absolutely. Well, y'all, I thank y'all so much for joining us tonight. This is Crystal Raspberry, y'all. She has been wonderful. And listen, if y'all missed it, shame on you. Shame, shame, shame on you, because this was good. Okay. So make sure that you go back and watch it and share it, y'all. This is really good information. Like Crystal said, even if you don't feel like it's good for you, share it, because it's nothing worse than having a friend on your timeline going through something and you don't know. And just simply sharing this live, sharing this information could make all the difference in the world in a phone call coming to you unexpected. So, Crystal, once again, thank you, Elliot. Be blessed. You're always blessing our channel. Y'all, thank y'all for tuning in. And listen, if nobody has told y'all this today, as you always know, I love you. All right. Bye.